In August 2017, the waters off the western coast of Washington state were hit by a violent storm. Winds roared at over 75 miles per hour, waves rose higher than 30 feet, and in the chaos, massive industrial fish pens owned by Cook Aquaculture were torn apart by the sea. More than 250,000 Atlantic salmon, a species that had never existed in the Pacific Ocean, escaped into open waters. Within hours, one of the largest environmental disasters in North American aquaculture history had begun. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a technical mishap. But when strange salmon started showing up in fishermen's nets thousands of miles away in Alaska, fear began to spread. The damage went far beyond the lost fish. When state officials got involved, the reported number stunned the entire industry. Over $1 billion in losses, including production setbacks, ecological control, environmental cleanup, brand damage, and long-term consequences. But worse than the financial blow was the haunting realization that the ocean was now carrying an invasive species, one that could alter the mighty ecosystem of the Pacific forever. The question now was, could humanity stop this silent invasion beneath the waves? This is the story of the Atlantic salmon invasion and how 250,000 escaped fish triggered a $1 billion environmental threat. If you enjoy deep dive documentaries like this, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next story. Atlantic salmon, Salmo salar, are born in the cold rivers of Europe and the North Atlantic. They grow up in the ocean, return upstream to spawn, and die where they were born. They are resilient, intelligent, and driven by an almost terrifying instinct to survive. But in the Pacific Ocean, home to Chinook, sockeye, and coho salmon, species that have coexisted for thousands of years, they became intruders. These Atlantic salmon didn't just compete for food. They also carried diseases and parasites from industrial fish farms. Once these pathogens entered natural ecosystems, they had the potential to devastate entire native salmon populations. Even worse, if a few of the escaped fish survived, adapted, and reproduced successfully, they could create hybrid populations, shattering an evolutionary balance that had taken millions of years to form. Ecologists called it the silent invasion. No explosions, no smoke, just flashes of silver gliding through kelp forests, slipping quietly into rivers once believed to host only native salmon. For Alaska's indigenous peoples, this was more than an environmental issue. It was a spiritual violation. In their culture, salmon are the soul of the river, the lifeblood of the harvest. When the salmon disappear, people disappear too. Fisheries patrol teams were mobilized all along the U.S. and Canadian west coasts. They examined every fish, every river, every sample of seawater. Laboratories ran around the clock, searching for traces of foreign DNA. Hundreds of local volunteers joined in, tagging, capturing, and disposing of every Atlantic salmon they could find drifting into estuaries. But the ocean never stops moving. Currents carried the fish northward. Some were caught near Vancouver Island. Others were discovered in Alaska's glacial rivers, thousands of miles from where the cages had burst. No one could explain how they had survived such freezing waters. But one thing was clear: they were adapting.
agarras nada. Ya agarraste la primera culebra, pelado.
As scientists raced to contain the situation, climate change made everything worse. Melting polar ice and warming seas opened up new habitats where the species could now thrive. Places that were once natural barriers had turned into ecological corridors for the invaders. Under growing public pressure, Washington state issued a permanent ban on open-sea Atlantic salmon farming, shutting down the entire industrial net pen model. Cook Aquaculture was forced to pay hundreds of millions in damages and cease all operations in the region. Yet one haunting question remained: had we really stopped the invasion, or just one wave of it? 7 years have passed since that storm. The sea has calmed, the ice continues to melt, and the foreign salmon have all but vanished from human radar. Yet sometimes, fishermen in Alaska still pull up a bright, silvery body that gleams under the northern sun. No one knows if it's the last survivor or just one of thousands descended from the escape years ago. The ocean never reveals its secrets. Humans can measure temperature, salinity, and currents, but we can never control the life it shelters. The Atlantic salmon invasion stands as a reminder of our limits. One broken steel cable, one violent storm, and a balance shaped over millions of years can be rewritten overnight. Today, the global aquaculture industry still raises hundreds of millions of salmon in net pens, generating tens of billions of dollars every year. But behind those numbers, can anyone truly say there isn't another Cypress Island incident waiting to happen? The ocean is silent, but silence doesn't mean peace. Among the millions of salmon swimming upstream each spring, there may still be a few wanderers, creatures from another ocean, carrying with them the memory of human error. If you think the sea is sleeping, listen closely to the silence of the lost salmon, because sometimes that silence is the loudest warning about humanity's future.